You know, smart warehousing and this, industrial 4.0 it's kind of a new thing for us. It feels like we're on the very front end of a revolution. Now, of course, Nikki, you've been spending a lot of your time in this space, and that's why I wanted you to come on and talk to us all about this upcoming, I think, revolution that we are all going to be experiencing. Of course, we're here in staffing, so all the warehouses and the plants that we're in, we're seeing the smart factories. We're seeing the automation happening all around us. So that's why, look at this little banner I've got here for you. I know you probably don't consider yourself the expert, but you're our automation expert today, Nikki.
Thanks, Tony. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. And I'm looking forward to kind of picking your brain to figure out, okay, when you walk into a warehouse, you walk into a plant, we're basically stepping into the industrial Internet of Things, right? What is that? Help us understand the framework that this new ecosystem is kind of, built upon, if you will.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. IoT first kind of came on the scene, and it's definitely excelled more on the consumer side. So Internet of Things is taking things that were traditionally not connected, right? Connecting them to the internet and then sharing data, whether that be with the user or with the cloud to get more intelligence, connecting things that traditionally were done out in the world on their own. Industrial Internet of Things is the same concept, but with industrial assets and machinery, parts of your plant, all those sorts of things. And there is a difference in how those things work, primarily because of security, and there's a lot more to be considered when you're talking about connecting up a piece of equipment that could potentially kill somebody if it gets hacked into or something goes wrong, than having your watch connected to the internet, right, that you walk around with. Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why industrial Internet of Things is still sort of in the development phase for a lot of smaller plants and warehouses, because it's not as simple as just, let's just connect everything to the internet. You don't actually want to do that. And you just think about in your house, right? All the smart thermostats and the smart appliances. There's low risk to someone coming in and changing your lights. There's a huge risk to having a manufacturing plant or a warehouse with heavy machinery connected to things if things aren't completely safe and segmented. So that really is just taking those assets, typically the machinery, robotics, things like that, but having that connected up to a network, a plant network or a warehouse network, that then everybody in the business, including in some cases now, AI type applications that can take the data that comes from that plant floor and do something interesting with it. That is kind of the premise of industrial Internet of Things.
Yeah, once you have everything connected, then you can start looking at the data, and then you can start doing things with it.
Exactly.
And I think the thing that you touched on really there is this kind of smart factory ecosystem. You've got the hardware, you've got the software, you've got the technology, and it all kind of flows together. So from your point of view, just give us a kind of an overview of what are the different components or different aspects of this ecosystem that makes a smart warehouse.
Well, it's really about connecting the plant floor, which may or should hopefully include also potentially the workers that are there, all of the activity that goes on, the pattern, the machinery, connecting that data to data that's traditionally considered to be business process data, right? So you kind of have the factory machinery, and then you have things like warehouse management systems, right, that look at inventory. Well, now that it's connected to the internet, you can actually verify that the numbers in your spreadsheets actually exist on the floor and where they are, so on. You have inventory management. You have your ERP system, your CRM systems, your contact management, your sales data. And the premise of this Industry 4.0 or smart factory is that eventually everything gets connected. If you've heard the term single source of truth, it's one of those terms that's been around for a long time, connected with digitalization. But the idea is try to get everything connected into a single place where you can take data that exists on the plant floor, like how many items did we produce today, and tie that directly to the inventory spreadsheet that the accountants look at. So we're all looking at the same information. It all gets updated in real time. And that really allows the business to make much smarter decisions much faster. Because you should be able to look up what's going on the floor today and last week and this past month and maybe the past year without having to wait for all reports to roll in from different parts of the business, be consolidated and made into a report or a dashboard. So that's kind of the older way of doing it. All these systems exist in silos. They all produce reports that eventually get consolidated together somewhere for the ownership or management to have a full look at the business.
Yeah, and what I like about that is that once you have the data flowing and you're beginning to trust the data and it's accurate, then AI can start to come in and help optimize or just tell you these are the peaks, these are the valleys, and you can begin to figure out, hey, we could just be having, human problems. The machines are running fine. The problem is here, and here, and we're talking about, workforce issues. And this is really why I wanted you down because Wintech has a unique space in the industry for human machine interface, HMI. And this is a space that you have a lot of experience in. And I wanted you to explain to people, now that they understand, smart warehousing conceptually and the ecosystem that is really in place, that allows a system, like an HMI to come in, right, and further optimize closer down right at the machine level, because that's really what we're talking about is this automation and robotics. It's got to be controlled. You need sophisticated control. So for those who don't know what HMI is, walk us through. Tell us, what is this and why, frankly, why is it even needed?
Yeah. And most people just don't even know that it's a thing, right?
Exactly.
Why
is this even a thing? Exactly.
Yeah. And we're probably one of the only companies in the world that really care about only this one thing, because this is the only thing that we make. Most other companies, they make lots of products, lots of automation products, and HMI is just one of the things that's needed to build a modern factory or machine. But really what it is it's an operator interface. So in the past, machines typically would be controlled by buttons, relays, things like that. So you have, if you're running a machine, you'll have a start, stop. You may have some other functions that the operator needs to do. And the old way was to build kind of a control panel with some indicator lights and buttons. Then about 30 years ago, we started to put these on digital screens, touch screens. And that evolved into the human-machine interface or digital touchscreen operator interface. So instead of having physical buttons and lights, we recreate them on the screen. And it allows the operator to operate the machine. And it started to allow the operator to see things on the screen like statistics about the machine or maybe go into some troubleshooting mode. But it really was kind of a dumb screen replacement of those buttons and lights.
That was literally the first thing that came to my mind was we're talking from dumb to smart. You're adding a smart control panel essentially to your equipment, correct?
Yeah, so it initially made that buttons and lights into a screen. And now we have what we call smart HMIs that really act as not just the operator interface to the machine, but also the machine's communication to the rest of the plant, other machines, the plant network. And now the HMI itself can essentially be the gateway that brings that machine online to the industrial Internet of Things. And that can mean just the network of that particular plant, the LAN. No, we're not talking Wi-Fi. We're not talking connecting it to the cloud. But there is capability for that as well. So it depends on the business,
right,
how much they want to connect things up. But the HMI now serves as this smart hub to the machine, not just a way to push the buttons.
Got it. I think that was the missing piece for me, was trying to understand, okay, I get it. It's adding intelligence, but now this is literally this is gathering the data and giving the operator more information about the machine, but also then feeding into the industrial Internet of Things. So then you have all your equipment connected internally. It doesn't have to, like you say, it doesn't have to, it's not like outside on the Wi-Fi. Okay. So as we are in staffing, we're always looking at ways to either, improve the life, the work life style of, people on the floor. How does a system like this, how do these HMIs actually improve, workforce or, labor standards?
Yeah, I think they really do that in a few ways if we're talking about updated interfaces, right, in these smart HMIs. Problem is, our products last so long that you have a lot of these 20-year-old, still dumber touchscreens out there because they work. And in
Well, I got to stop
manufacturing,
you right there.
oftentimes it's not broken, don't fix it, right?
I have to say, I am kudos that you actually have things that last, because this is like a total side note, and I'll get you back on track. But I am so frustrated at the amount of money we spend on product that is designed to fail. And it is uber frustrating. So I'm really glad to hear that you do have some of these older systems that are still, up and running. Just as a consumer, I'm just super annoyed, at that. I just had another something that I spent hundreds of dollars on, and it lasted for like a year and a half, and they want like $600 to fix it. And I'm like, this is a racket. So anyway, continue as you were. I just had to get off my rant here for a minute.
And I will try not to go on that tangent because I also have a lot to say about that, but that's maybe for another time. Yeah, where was I? No, I went on that tangent.
You see, this is why I should just let people talk. I should not get in there. I was just
no, that's okay.
We're just.
I think I remember
how
where
is it? Okay, it's helping.
How does it benefit the operator?
Yeah, the operator. Yeah.
So I think for a start, it makes it a lot easier for them to understand what they're doing if the interface is designed to be intuitive. It really should support the operator in seeing what they need to see and not seeing too much information that maybe confuses them or makes it harder for them to do their job. But it allows the operator to have multiple layers to how they interact with the machine. So on a day-to-day basis, as they're just running the machine, they only need to see the most salient stuff, like is it running? Does it need to have, is it stopped, right? And then they can actually change the screens, or they can access it from somewhere else, and they can look at production stats, and they can look at maintenance information. Now we can put training videos onto the HMIs. So if at any point in time you're training a new operator or somebody hasn't run that machine in a while, they can look up videos directly on the machine of how to operate it or get maintenance instructions.
Put your safety in there, right? Do this, don't do that. There you go.
You can put the digital work instructions, to a point, right? There's other systems that do other things, right? But we can do recipe management, running different things on that directly from the screen. But I think from the operator standpoint, just the ability to have training, more information, more things to assist them to do their job better. Things like also spare parts, bill of materials directly on the machine. All the things that may, in time of a crisis, and let's face it, in manufacturing and warehousing, downtime is always a crisis.
Yeah.
The more you can assist the operator with being very well familiar with that machine, having all the data that they need to run, fix, and keep that machine running, that I think is the number one. The other thing is now we make them like iPhone. So the old style was like a very industrial resistive touch, which requires force, and it doesn't have a whole lot of fidelity. You can only click with one button at a time. Now we have what feels more like an iPad, so a capacitive touch screen that allow you to do multi-swipe, or you can have it vibrate for feedback when you press buttons. So again, it kind of gives the younger operator a more intuitive interface that feels more like they're working on their smartphone or their tablet.
Yeah.
While at the same time making sure that it's an industrial product that will last under that 24/7 pressure for 20 years. Or whatever, now 10 years at least is kind of the lifespan that you want in this industrial environment, which is why we haven't replaced all of these with tablets, which is something that we honestly thought maybe 10 years ago would happen. Every operator would be walking around with an iPad.
Yeah.
But there are limitations to that. The iPads don't last as long. they, having those
Get lost,
USB connectors
broken.
that work on consumer devices, you know how often those break, right? I have to replace my power cables at least once a year. You can't have that in an industrial environment. So what we need to bring is that convenience factor and that usability that people are used to in their consumer lives, but it has to be industrial grade hardware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned something about the haptic feedback, and that makes sense because if, as you know, everyone's wearing gloves. It's your PPE. Yep. So the thicker the gloves, whatever, the haptic feedback is great because we've just activated it. The last thing you would want to do is toggle on or off, and it needs to be one or the other. So I think that's a smart, literally, feature. I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, I want you to look into the future for me. I love this segment where people have to put their predictions online. We're not going to hold you to it, but I'd be very
moments for the future.
It's like poly market, what's the outcome going to be? I want to know in your opinion, what do you think a smart warehouse is going to look like in the future? I keep seeing these examples and things online. You're in there every day. Where are we going with these? What do you think is possible?
I think we're going into bigger footprints and a lot more volume with less people, to be honest. But I don't see the majority of any of these things being completely lights out. You're still going to need people, but there will be a lot more systems that are autonomous within the entire process of the warehouse. So looking at, for instance, these cool like auto store type, and it's probably a brand, I'm maybe saying the wrong thing, but these shuttles that go around and pick up inventory and drop them in. These sorts of systems are being installed in warehouses everywhere, and it does require less people to be running around the entire thing. But I think that they're going to be safer, more connected, have a better kind of work-life balance for the people that actually do get a chance to work there. But I do think that ultimately it's going to reduce the number of people that you need for these warehouses.
Yeah, I was just doing some research inside of Grok, trying to figure out, what are the top 100 jobs that are going to exist, inside of, smart warehouses. And I said, okay, great. He came up with a bunch of stuff, and I was like, okay, now go to Indeed and actually find those jobs. And only maybe 20 or 25% of them came back with actual jobs. And I said, okay, so this is pretty much theoretical. It's thinking that these are the types of jobs that will be needed. So we really are on the cusp of a new generation of work and the types of things that need to be done. So I don't want people to be scared when they listen to, as you say, well, you said it wasn't going to be a lights out warehouse, which is good. We don't want we want lights on. We want people to be in there. It will require people to go through some upskilling. You're going to have to learn to do different things. If you're just a, manual laborer, really it's time for you to start investing in yourself. You've got to start upskilling because the easy manual jobs, those are the ones that are just going to be, wiped out.
And I think there being no specialization to that really. I'll say my brother-in-law, he works in warehouses, and he's never worked in one that was very smart. So there are, just like the long tail of almost any industry, the manufacturing industry is this way, and I'm pretty sure the logistics is probably the same. There are a few big players that have huge automated, almost lights-out warehouses, but there are millions more of small operations.
There are.
And they're not investing in this yet. It's not mature enough yet for them to feel comfortable.
Correct.
They don't have the specialized workforce either to make sure that all of this works together. You need all these different new jobs, right? And there really is only a fraction of these companies that need that right now. But it'll trickle down eventually. But I don't see a future where, like, 2 years from now, every small warehouse is going to be automated in some way.
Well, no, there's a cost benefit, and right now it is cheap. Literally, it is cheaper just to throw bodies at it. Unfortunately, that is a mindset that they have. Yeah, I've heard it's been reported 85% that's not automated. So to your point, it's the big boys. Those they're the ones. The Amazon that just laid off 17,000 people, and they're putting in 17,000 robots. All right. As we begin to wrap up, tell us a little bit more about Wine Tech. No, we're not Win Tech. I want to say wine, but we're not whiners, right? We're winners.
Exactly.
Win Tech.
Win Tech. So Win Tech is one of the original manufacturers of that touchscreen HMI. And so if you think about, electronics 30 years ago, we're not very sophisticated, but we came out with the first or one of the first full color touchscreen for this. And so we've just been a high volume manufacturer of HMIs. We do all of the R&D. We build our own software. The software is completely free. So that's another thing that I think people are kind of drowning in these days is subscription costs and licensing fees. We've taken kind of a hard line on that. Manufacture really good hardware, and the software just comes with it. But we've been focusing on operator interfaces and human machine interfaces and this connectivity piece, making them smart for 30 years. And that's all we focus on. So we're not a super well-known household name because we're so niche. And most of the HMIs we have out there don't even have our brand name on them because we sell them to machine builders and companies that make the equipment that goes into the factories. And they may just want their own brand on it or no particular brand on this piece, right? But that's what we do. We're human machine interface
partner kind of
expert
in there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and what's kind of funny, the reason I connected with you and we found each other is that you actually have a podcast as well.
I do.
And that's what kind of hit me. I thought, oh, she's probably used to doing these type of things. So, and I just thought, honestly, I think the name of your podcast is really cute, is clever. Automation Ladies. I love that.
Thank you. Did I tell you where it came from? Where my idea came from?
You might have.
Well, in case your audience wants to hear, I recommend this podcast as well, but it's called Office Ladies. And it's Pam and Angela from The Office. And they are best friends in real life. And they have a podcast in which they talk about The Office. And so I thought to myself, man, I am a nerd about automation. I love to talk about it. I don't really have any friends that like to talk about it. But it would be cool. When I do go to trade shows and I talk to customers, right? When you meet those people that are into your niche thing that you do for work, it's always really fun.
You've just found your best friend and just like
exactly. And so I had found my co-host Ali G on LinkedIn. She was posting content from automation trade shows, and she works on control systems, PLCs, HMIs, those sorts of things. She's an engineer, and I just had a lot of fun talking to her. And I thought there may be other people out there that would have fun listening to these conversations. And yeah, that's where that came from. I said, I wish I had a friend that I could talk to automation.
It is. It really, that's exactly what happens. And I think that's how a lot of these podcasts start. And of course, now there's tons of podcasts out there. So that's a lot of fun, though. I hope people check that out. Well, Nikki, it has been great seeing you again. And, I wish you guys all the best luck, in 2026, because as we know, we're at the start of that hockey curve.
Absolutely.
It's just going straight up. And, maybe don't make things that last so long. Maybe you get a little more turnover. Maybe, get a little, no, don't do that. People love longevity and strength. That's awesome.
I'd much rather have people upgrade because they really need to connect things up and get the new features, not because the thing that we made broke.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we'll save our rants for our next podcast.
Yeah, let's talk about that sometime.
We'll do that. That'll be part of our follow up on our next one. Nikki, it's been great seeing you again, and again, I wish y'all all the best and good luck in your next episode with Automation Ladies.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.